Hello everyone, my name is James York and I am an educator in Tokyo working at Meiji University. And in this video I am going to be introducing the world of PICO-8. Why am I doing this? Well, I teach a class at Meiji University called The History of Video Games, and I ask students to create a presentation or a video essay on a topic of their choosing from the world of video games. Now, I don't just like to give students homework. I think that teachers should provide models and show what you're expecting of students, which is why I've created this video essay or presentation, if you like, on the topic of PICO-8. So as you can see on the right here, I have created some slides using PICO-8 itself, and this is inspired by Zepp, the creator of PICO-8, and his talk in 2018. So let me show you the content of today's talk. First of all, I'm going to talk about what PICO-8 is. We're going to look at some of the features, talk about games worth your time, the positives, some of the negatives, a special interview, and finally, I'll convince you why you should probably get PICO-8. Okay, so what is PICO-8 and who made it? Let's look at this question first. PICO-8 was developed and designed by Joseph White, who is also known as Zepp, Z-E-P, and they are a developer from New Zealand who are actually living right here in Japan. But what is PICO-8? Well, it's simply a platform for playing, creating, and remixing and sharing games. It's a fantasy console designed to spark creativity and make game development accessible to everyone. With its unique constraints like 8x8 sprites, a limited color palette, and capped memory, PICO-8 challenges developers to think creatively, much like computer hardware once did around 30 years ago. These deliberate limitations foster innovation, blending nostalgic charm with modern convenience. Zepp, the creator of PICO-8, envisioned it as a playful space where both beginners and veterans can experiment, learn, and share. It's a platform that democratizes game development, shifting the focus from complexity to creativity and discovery. As John Dalton sums up in their presentation,
PICO-8 is a fantasy console. It's an 8-bit console that never existed. It's half nostalgic trip, half artistic statement. It's a combined emulator and development environment for an imaginary system that might have existed about 30 years ago, designed to run on modern hardware.
In this video, we'll explore the features, games, and community that make PICO-8 so special. Stick around to see why this tiny console with big ideas should matter to you. So let's have a look at some of the features of PICO-8. As you can tell by the screen, the resolution of this virtual console is rather low. We have a display of 128 by 128 pixels, and it has a 16 color palette. The card size for each game is a maximum of 32 kilobytes, 4 channels of sound. It uses PICO-8 version or flavor of the Lua code, Lua programming language, I should say. CPU speed, approximately 4 million instructions per second. Sprites, it has a maximum of 256 sprites that you can create, and they are 8x8 pixels in size. And the map size, 128 by 32 tiles. Again, a tile being 8x8 pixels. And how do we make games on PICO-8? Well, we have the code interface, we have the sprite interface, we can create maps to play our games, sound effects, and music. I'm going to show you each of these one by one so you can see just what PICO-8 looks like on the inside. Okay, so let's have a look inside PICO-8. So when we open the software, we are greeted with a terminal. If we press escape, we can get into the PICO-8 game design studio itself. So this tab is for creating code. The next tab is for creating sprites. The next tab is for creating maps, sound effects, and finally music. PICO-8 features 3 core functions. They are the init function, which is where we can set up variables. The update function, which is run every frame. The draw function, which again is also run every frame. Let's create a sprite for our player. That'll do. Now I've made a little character move on the screen. I can't just leave it at that, so we're gonna have to do the flip. Let's call it flip. Player flip. Player dot flip. Player dot flip equals true. And here, player dot flip equals false. Should work. Hey, there we go. That's better. Okay, so now we've played with the coding side of things and the sprite side of things. Let's look at the sound. The sound in PICO-8 is you can draw in like this, and it will just make a sound effect. Pretty cool. If we slow down the sound, it becomes a rhythm. Okay, so sound effects and melodies are essentially the same thing. It just depends on what speed you play them back. And if you're feeling particularly adventurous, you can put different sound effects and different melodies on different channels, just like a tracker. So for example, we can say here, let's have a go. Got it. As well as maybe some drums. Let's change the instrument. Let's have a square wave drop. Drop, drop, drop. No, we'll make this a little bit quicker. And we'll put a sound in here. That's too low. There we go. It's going to be very simple. Boots and cats and boots and cats. Go back to our previous sound, make it a bit faster. Maybe make it like that. And we can play them both together. There we go. Ship it. Finally, let's take a look at the map making tools. So I've just added this line here. And if I go over to the map, I created some sprites as well. So we've got some grass. Let me just zoom out a little here so we can see what's going on better. This represents a single screen of PICO-8, these two dots. So we can fill in this whole area. Boom. Try that again. Put in some fancy grass. Put in some flowery grass. Put in a river. Fancy river bits. Too many. Even fancier river bits. And a path. Now we should have, there we go, but he starts in the wrong place. Let me just put him, he can start, let's say 16 by 16. There we go. Now we have a map that we created ourselves, and it's as simple as that. But that's enough of an introduction of what PICO-8 is. Let's have a look at some games that I think are worth your time. First of all, Mimic. Mimic is a puzzle game where you copy the movement of various animals to become them and traverse the terrain that is otherwise blocking you. Copy the fish to become it and swim through the rivers, for example. Next, To a Starling. This is a cute platformer puzzler with a wonderful teleport gimmick. Into Ruins. This is a gorgeous atmospheric isometric roguelike. Solitude. Solitaire meets Dungeon Crawler, an impressive game and doubly impressive scope for this tiny PICO-8 console. The limitations, Solitude really pushes against them. It's amazing. If you like things like Inscription or Balatro, give this one a look. Trichomat, I think this is pronounced as. I really like this game. It's a Sokoban game where you push blocks into the correct space, but it uses the primary colors and you push them on top of each other until they become a single block that you then push into the right place. It's a really nice one. Xterra. This is a fantastic shmup game which has both retro and modern modes. Oozes character. Oblivion Eve. This is a platformer roguelike with just oodles and oodles of character. It's got a story, lore, training, and leveling up, of course, because it's a roguelike. Labcat. This is another Sokoban game which uses portals, which I really like. And, of course, PICO-8. If you've ever heard of Super Hot, this is the PICO-8 version, a kind of demake, which was created by 3 members of the original Super Hot team. Okay, now on to the lengthier part of the presentation, where I talk about what's good about PICO-8. First of all, it's self-contained, as you noticed. There's no external tools needed to run PICO-8 on your computer. Everything exists within it. What does this mean? It means that if things break in your game, it's not because of an external tool that you are relying on. For example, I have ran a Minecraft server for the past 10 years, and plugins update all the time. Sorry, I should say the other way around. Minecraft gets updated, which makes plugins break, and then you're relying on these external plugins to be updated for your server to run nice and efficiently and correctly again. This is a real pain in the butt. Okay? But PICO-8, it's all internal. You're not relying on these external tools. This also means that you can do lightning quick testing. This is mentioned in a video by W84Death, who says that they love the most about PICO-8 is the ability to make something drawn in a screen in a matter of seconds. Everything that you need is there and runs smoothly. Following, this is something that is super important for PICO-8 and something I need to touch on here, which is the constraints equals creativity. Paradox of choice. The paradox of limitations and creativity is a fascinating concept that is often explored in the context of art and design. My introduction to this idea of the paradox of choice is through music making. The idea is that constraints and limitations can actually foster creativity and innovation, and we can also recognize innovation and creativity based on the constraints that are put on somebody as well. So when an artist are given too many tools and options, they become overwhelmed and paralyzed by indecision. This is also known as analysis paralysis, which is a related term often used with video games or board games where you have so many options, you're not sure which one to take. On the other hand, when artists are forced to work within certain boundaries, they often forced to think outside the box and come up with new and unexpected solutions. This can lead to truly groundbreaking and original work. Now, concretely, and again, as a musician of sorts, I started my journey with programs like Cubase and later Ableton Live, making techno, house, EDM, dubstep, and generally loud, bass, heavy music. These tools are great, but I found myself spending a lot of time searching for the perfect instrument or the perfect plugin to help make the perfect instrument sound as good as it could. This overwhelming choice of instruments, automation, tweaks, and effects can be paralyzing or at least detrimental to the progression of actually making a track. Then in around 2009, I found the chiptune scene and bought my first Game Boy. With LSDJ in hand, I started making music with the limited sounds and abilities of the Game Boy. You get into the program, start laying down sounds, and make quick progress. Now, back to PICO-8 and how this relates. So where I'm going with this is that the modern game engines like Unity or Unreal, Godot or Game Maker, there can be the same sense of, I can do everything, but actually you end up doing nothing because of the hurdle to entry, or the paradox of choice. That's where I think PICO-8 comes in. It's the LSDJ of game engines. Simple sprites, maps, sounds, and music, coupled with a simple coding language, means that you can get started really quickly. Of course, the possibility within the PICO-8 game space is not on scale with the scope of those from larger game engines, but it doesn't have to be. As Zepp himself said,
if you have no boundaries, then the space is so sparse. It's like being out in space. You're looking at the stars in the distance, and they're interesting, complex things, but they just all appear as points of light. Whereas if you find some boundaries, it's more like being down on the surface of a planet with a lush jungle and interesting life, but it's just one planet.
And?
I'm valuing design over content. I want people to just make something, capture the concept, and they just move on to something else, and to feel okay to do that.
So, in summary, as the limits of a medium software tool are known to all of those that use it, it becomes even more impressive when you see an artist pushing on those limits and creating something you thought would be impossible to create. I'll never forget the moment I heard Chibitek's Kyun Step for the first time, pushing the NES to its absolute limits. And we know that she's doing that because we know those limits. The same goes for PICO-8. Look at this simple RPG that I made. I was pretty happy with it, right? It works, there are levels, monsters, an ending, and there's even a little bit of learning. Now look at Solitum. See the difference? Aren't you amazed that the same game came from the same system? I have no idea how all of this was pushed into a single cart, but guess what? I can go inside and take a look. Oh wait, the code of Solitum is minimized to save tokens. I have no idea what's going on here. Being left with a feeling of, how the hell did they do that, is the epitome of creativity within limits, and PICO-8 is a fantastic example of a tool which fosters this feeling. Okay, next, the open source nature of PICO-8. Yes, this is proprietary software where we have to pay approximately $15 for it, but once the game is purchased, all of the carts themselves that people create are basically open source. Carts can be opened up and tinkered with. Code can be borrowed, copied. Snippets can be shared to help development. Let's take a look at the explore function. So with explore, you can explore the large library of PICO-8 games at any time. You can find new games, browse featured games, or play old favorites. Plus, after playing, you can exit out of explore and save any of these games to your own PC for offline play. What's more, you can also see inside these carts and learn from those who've already produced excellent games. Let's give it a go. So I'm going to go to explore. Look for the recently featured games. Let's say Balloon. I can play it. I can also favorite it. Whoa, another balloon. I can also exit from explore, save balloon to my PC, and look inside. So here we can see the balloon. Oh, there's a rainbow balloon too. Balloon, here we go. Play. Sprite. Okay, set it to sprite 1. Let's set it to sprite 2. Replay. And there we go. So we can download, play, and figure out how the game works. Ah! Next, let's talk about the community. So the carts, they can be shared. They are open. We can see what's inside. There's an open, active, passionate, and friendly community built around PICO-8 on the Lexaloffle forums and the official PICO-8 Discord, as well as other smaller Discord servers focused on developing games for this platform. Which leads to the educational connection. There is an EDU edition of PICO-8 which runs in the browser, so you can explore and play with the PICO-8 engine itself in your browser for free. And there are teachers that are creating tutorials for PICO-8 to help others learn how to use this software. For example, M. Boffin has created a wonderful adventure game tutorial, and Christian, aka Lazy Devs Academy, has created a bunch of tutorials that start extremely slowly for the complete beginner, and he's created tutorials around a roguelike, a shmup, and he also has a feature called the Doggy Zone in the videos, which are areas which push the students to think of things for themselves at the end of each video. Again, this also connects to the Lua programming language, I think, in that compared to more rigid and verbose programming languages like C#, which we use in Unity, the Lua programming language is pretty forgiving and simple. Yes, that may have its positives and negatives. It's hard to debug, but for beginners, the simplicity of the language means that things can get created rather quickly. Also, it should be mentioned that Lua is also used in other games like Roblox, which has millions of users worldwide. This platform relies heavily on Lua for scripting game logic. Lua's lightweight footprint and high performance make it ideal for handling complex game behaviors without bogging down the game engine. Okay, on to the next section. What is not so great about PICO-8? I've got 3 things to talk about here. First of all, the constraints. As we mentioned, the constraints being a positive in that you have to be innovative within those limitations. There are limitations. The screen is only 128 by 128 pixels. Everything needs to be coded itself. No collision detection by default. No GUI, no music, no sound effects. So yeah, there are constraints which, of course, have the negatives as well. PICO-8 isn't great on mobile. There is no app that you can download to play PICO-8 games. So there is no native screen that has a controller that you can use to play PICO-8. Basically, you can only really play PICO-8 in the browser, I think. And with this, there are some problems. It doesn't run very, very good. So it's not very good on touch screens, okay? And it's not commercially viable. What I mean by this is that the games that you create, you can't really put them on Steam or consoles like the Switch or PlayStation 4, although there is a video by Lazy Devs Academy that just came out showing how a particular developer put their game on the Nintendo Switch. But generally, again, referring to the Lazy Devs Academy video, selling PICO-8 games is technically possible, but making money from it is a whole different story. They gathered data from 34 different developers showing that the average revenue for a PICO-8 game is about $40, with a medium of only about $8 per game. We are back on the contents page, and now it is time for the interview. I've already recorded this. I know exactly what we talked about, so please enjoy a few snippets of a much longer interview that I took with Christian from Lazy Devs Academy. As someone that's very prominent in the PICO-8 scene, if you want to say, I've watched many hours of Christian's Lazy Dev Academy videos, and I thought, what better person to talk to than Christian? So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
When did you let's get onto topic, I guess. When did you meet PICO-8? And yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about your introduction to it and how it started.
I see. I have to think about when that was.
Interesting.
I think. So the thing that brought me to PICO-8 was the pocket chip.
The pocket chip, right?
Do you remember the pocket?
Yeah,
do you have one?
Somewhere, yeah.
I also still have mine. It barely works, but hey. And I saw that advertisement. That was exactly what I envisioned in as my child said, and it cost just $50.
Yeah.
This is just like incredible.
Mm.
And so I thought, okay, let's. I'm just going to order this, right? And then they took their sweet time shipping it to me. So I got impatient, and I was like, okay, I might just as well check out the software on it, because the thing that was very much advertised in the ad was PICO-8.
Mm.
So I looked up PICO-8 and I bought it in advance before even getting the pocket chip, and I started exploring it. And at first, I thought it would be like this little toy that I would play on the side eventually, But I realized very quickly that it was surprisingly powerful. in a sense that you could make like wasn't just like this little toy that you could make like a small like a throwaway kind of game. Like you could go a little bit further than you thought looking at it. It wasn't just like drag and drop components to make something move on the screen. You could actually do real code there.
Yep.
And it reminded me very much of the things that kind of like we lost.
Yeah.
Or I lost, like of the Atari 130 XE. And also I lamented the fact that Flash was also destroyed basically by Steve Jobs. I blame Steve Jobs for destroying Flash. I mean, it's interesting that I recognize the connection to BASIC, because when you listen to Zap, and especially that one interview of Zap,
the 2018 one, right?
Yeah. He talks about his choice of language, that he chose Lua, but he also talks about how initially he actually wanted to have BASIC on there, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, when I heard that, I was like, oh no, yeah, you and me, we think the same way about game making, and that's something that also I started realizing that actually, no, this is you can do serious games with it. It's just like the limitations are adding like this friction, and that friction is creates like a creative spark.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I started using a lot of PICO-8 also in my teachings whenever I went to different institutes and did courses, especially to bring people on board with programming, because I think the way it fronts programming, the way the core way you interact with the machine is programming, like writing code.
Yeah,
I think that's actually really good for people who have never did any programming.
Yeah, I was going to get onto that topic of as a fellow educator, what do you see as PICO-8's positives and perhaps negatives as well?
So the big positive is, as I said, is well, first of all, everything is in one package. Even like the art asset creation is also integrated. Like everything is just like this one package that you launch, and it even runs in your browser, so it's very accessible. That's incredibly good. Yeah, very quick, very easy, very compressed, packaged very neatly. That makes it really nice. Again, the fact that it fronts the code is intimidating at first, but it breaks the ice immediately. I blame Unity, for example, for doing this. Like they tried to very early on to make everything like into modules you can drag and drop. Like you can just drag and drop a script on an object, right? And the idea was like to make the code all just like something that is just an object you interact with the UI. You don't have to actually know what the code does. You just drag and drop it onto an object.
Oh yeah, it's a hell of a learning curve. So again, coming back to the educator perspective, to have a student actually have a game made within a few weeks is probably really motivational for the student as well, to be like,
oh yeah, absolutely. No, it's not even weeks. Like you, in just a couple of lessons, you already have your first thing. Like in your first class, you move something on the screen, and I think this is very important. This is something that I found very motivating as a kid, and I still find fun and good. Is just write something, and then suddenly things are moving on the screen, and suddenly you're interacting with it. You asked about negative things of PICO-8. I have plenty of those. There's two big issues that I see in PICO-8. One is that the games don't look great. And quite often that will be demotivating for students, especially for people who have high aspirations.
Right.
As a student, you want to make, your next Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever.
Yeah.
And then making something, a squiggly line move on the screen might not be that great. Another huge criticism or problem that I have PICO-8 is I think the token limit is the thing that really drives me insane. But I have to say, like when you're talking about the criticism of PICO-8, something that is quite remarkable, and I noticed this over multiple semesters with different students, is that when I make the students make PICO-8 games, and they like complain, oh, it looks so ugly, it's just like such a simple game. And then I let them make the Unity game, right? And they're like, yes, finally Unity. And then they make the Unity game, and they mute it. And then afterwards, they look after the semester, they look back on the games they made. They always prefer the PICO-8 game in the end. They always say like, no, that was actually great. That worked. That was an actual real working game. And the thing that I made in Unity was just like a train wreck. It's just not working at all. It's like completely
Yeah.
imploded under its own weight.
Oh.
And the Pico 8, even though I felt it was so simple,
Mm.
in the end, it turns out to be like actually quite fun. And I think that's kind of like that's why one of the reasons why I like Pico 8 is because yes, Pico games are very limited, but you are actually already limited. The limitations are always there, whether you use a Pico 8 or not.
Yeah.
Pico 8 makes those limitations just explicit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It makes you it creates like a little box and say like, do not go outside this box. Outside there be dragons. And when the box disappears, you go to and you encounter those dragons and you realize that, oh, actually it wasn't such a good idea.
Oh, that's a really interesting way of putting it. Yeah, I like that. So, okay, let's switch into lazy devs. How did lazy devs come about, and how's it going? So the lazy devs original concept, was it a Pico? I'm going to make Pico 8 games on this channel. What was the original concept of it?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to have a place to talk about making games, and one of the early inspirations that I think still is valid is the Handmade Hero. So that's a series where a guy who's incredibly good programmer sits down and makes a game in a high level or low level language, like in C, C++, I think. I'm not even sure. It's some kind of C language, I think. And then it shows you all the steps that you do, build a game completely from scratch, from the ground up, without using any frameworks, or at least I think, or very little frameworks. And I think he's still not finished. That's fun. So I want to be like, okay, let's try to do something this in Pico 8. Maybe I will actually get finished, and I actually did get finished.
Just amazing stuff. But I think the most amazing thing about lazy devs is, like you said, it's an episode which shows you how to do something. And I think from a teaching perspective, or actually no, even just from a game design perspective, I think what people can learn from lazy devs is just do one thing. Like this video, we're gonna do this one thing. Like it shows you the procedural, the step-by-step nature of not trying to do everything all at once, but just do one thing at a time. And I think that it really highlights that very well.
Yeah, I'm doing my best because it's like I try to get every episode around half an hour, and
they're never half an hour, Christian. Come
it's
on.
sometimes more 40 minutes, more one. It's somewhere along. But it's difficult sometimes to break down the process into like these smaller chunks, right? But actually, I found myself to be learning from lazy devs a lot myself.
Right. So what are the future? What do you see in your future in terms of games design, education, travels in general? What is the future?
I would love to be either expand my freelancing activities or get like something more stable. That wasn't really possible where I was in China for a couple of years, and now after I returned, I'm looking for maybe some kind of like more stable employment, obviously. As for Lazy Devs Academy, I want to continue doing it. Again, as I said, the development channel has kind of plateaued right now. I think it has to do with the fact that I've been doing shmups for like 2 years or even longer now, right? So I'm like eager to wrap up the shmup series and maybe reach out to different genres, maybe even different engines as well. Like again, Picotron just came out, so I would be eager to check out Picotron, maybe do some more content on Picotron.
And travels back to China? Come to Japan?
No, probably not going to return to China. I think that chapter is finished right now. We're eager to explore. We actually want to maybe at some point to return to. We had a small visit in Japan, short visit in Japan. We loved it, and we would love to return to Japan at some point.
Yeah, please do hit me up. I'm in the Tokyo area, so I can come and hang out.
I absolutely will hit you up. No, you can bet your butt.
Well, that's great. I'm going to stop the video here soon, but
sure.
Yeah, this is a fantastic interview. It's really interesting to see behind the scenes, if you will, of Lazy Devs Academy and Christian's life. I wish you all the best with your future projects. I'm looking forward to the next tutorial series on the Lazy Devs Academy.
Yeah, if you have any suggestions on what you want me to tackle next, do shoot me a message. I will definitely put it on the list, and then I will throw a dart on the board and pick that.
All right, Christian, thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Right. So there you have it. That was a highly abbreviated version of a much longer conversation that I had with Christian, and I'm planning on uploading the full conversation soon. So why do I think that you should get PICO-8? First of all, the small scope. So PICO-8 projects are inherently small due to their limited scope, as Zep has noted. This means that you should have the resources to actually finish a game. You can learn all aspects of game design with PICO-8. Okay? As we have seen, you need more than just an idea to make a game. You need code, design sprites, make maps, the sound effects and the music. So PICO-8 is a great platform for you to figure out which of these elements you are good at and which you'll be needing more help with when planning a bigger project of your own. See inside. The Explore feature, as well as cart sharing, is in general a fantastic way of picking up new mechanics, effects, or frameworks for your own projects. Why not get started with a Celeste clone or a simple platformer, of which there are plenty of tutorials on the Lexiloffer website? Or you could follow along with the YouTube tutorials from mboffin or LazyDevs. So in conclusion, PICO-8 is more than just a fantasy console. It's a catalyst for creativity, a tool that invites anyone from beginners to seasoned developers to explore the joy of making games. Its charm lies in its simplicity and limitations, which paradoxically open doors to innovation. By encouraging experimentation and community-driven learning, PICO-8 embodies the spirit of game development as a collaborative and artistic endeavor. So why should PICO-8 matter to you? Because I think it's a testament to the power of accessible tools, the value of shared knowledge, and the magic that happens when we come together to make, learn, and play. Thank you for listening. This has been James York, aka Cheapshot on X and York on Blue Sky. Take it easy.